Pawn Stars boss Rick Harrison makes a sweet profit in an item that was once considered illegal. In the ever-changing world of collectibles, few items hold as much intrigue or controversy as those that were once outlawed. Whether it's due to shifting cultural attitudes, legal reforms, or evolving historical perspectives, many objects once deemed illegal have found their way into the spotlight as valuable and sought-after relics. For Rick Harrison, co-owner of the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, and star of Pawn Stars, these rare finds are more than just transactions, they're opportunities to educate, entertain, and make a solid profit. And one such opportunity came his way when a customer walked through the door with something that had once been strictly off-limits. The item in question was a bottle of absinthe, specifically a vintage pre-ban Czechoslovakian variety from the early 1900s. At first glance, it might not seem like much. The green liquid inside looked old, perhaps even stagnant. But to anyone familiar with the history of absinthe, the bottle represented a piece of European culture and rebellion, one that had been banned in the United States for nearly a century. Absinthe, often called the Green Fairy, was a popular spirit in Europe during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Revered by artists, writers, and bohemians, it became synonymous with decadence and danger. Its psychoactive reputation, largely unfounded, led to its prohibition in the U.S. in 1912, and it remained illegal until 2007, when revised regulations allowed for the sale of fujon-free versions of the drink. By 2010, vintage bottles of pre-ban absinthe had become highly desirable among collectors, especially those still sealed and in good condition. That's exactly what the seller brought into the shop, a dusty, unopened bottle from the early 20th century. Rick, who prides himself on knowing a little bit about everything, immediately recognized the potential value of the item. He didn't need to be told twice that this wasn't just some old liquor, it was a piece of history. "I've seen these before," Rick said, holding the bottle up to the light. "They used to call it the Devil's Drink." The seller nodded. "Yeah, I know. My grandfather kept it locked away. He always said it was illegal." Austin, Rick's son and fellow pawnbroker, chimed in. "It actually was illegal for almost 100 years. Rick smiled. "And now it's worth a lot of money." The seller wanted $5,000 for the bottle. That was a high number, but not unreasonable given the rarity of the item. Rick knew he'd have to tread carefully. He started by doing what he does best, researching. Pulling out his phone, he scrolled through auction sites, checking recent sales of similar bottles. Some had sold for over $4,000, while others fetched less depending on condition and provenance. "This one looks pretty clean," Rick said. "Still sealed. No leakage. That's important." Chumley, the shop's pop culture expert and frequent buyer of unusual items, leaned in. "I saw a documentary about this stuff. People thought it made you hallucinate." They blamed it for everything from madness to murder, Rick added, but most of that was hysteria. Despite the historical significance, Rick wasn't ready to jump at the price. He countered with $3,000, citing the fact that the market for vintage alcohol could be unpredictable. The seller hesitated. Negotiations continued. After several minutes of back and forth, Rick settled on an offer of $3,500. The seller, clearly aware of how rare the bottle was but also realistic about the current market, accepted. As the deal was finalized, Rick handed over the check and took possession of the bottle with a kind of reverence usually reserved for ancient artifacts. Once the transaction was complete, Rick placed the bottle behind the counter and turned to the camera crew. "You know why people love stuff like this?" he asked rhetorically. "Because it was once illegal. It makes it special. That sentiment is at the heart of collecting. Items that were once considered taboo or dangerous gain new appeal once they're no longer restricted. It's the same reason why vintage tobacco products, Nazi memorabilia when handled responsibly, and even certain weapons can fetch high prices in the right markets. Absinthe fell victim to moral panic in the early 20th century. Misinformation about its effects, particularly the belief that it caused insanity, led to its ban in dozens of countries. In reality, the culprit behind abs and the related health concerns was likely the excessive alcohol content and poor quality control, not the presence of wormwood, which contains thujone, a compound once blamed for hallucinations. By the time it was legalized again in the US, absinthe had taken on a mythical status. Collectors began seeking out original bottles, especially those produced before the ban. These pre-1912 bottles were not only rare, but also carried with them a sense of rebellion and mystery. Rick understood this better than most. Within weeks, Rick listed the bottle online. He provided detailed photos, historical context, and even included a short video explaining its significance. The listing quickly gained attention. Bidding started strong and escalated rapidly. Within days, the price surpassed $6,000. Rick was thrilled. "That's not bad for a bottle of old liquor," he joked. Austin agreed. "You paid $3,500, and now it's selling for double." Rick shrugged. "That's how this business works. You buy low, sell high, and sometimes you get lucky with something that has a story." The final bid came in at $6,800. Rick arranged shipping through a licensed alcohol dealer and completed the transaction without issue. When the money cleared, he casually mentioned the profit to Chum. "$680, Chum said, whistling. "Not bad for a drink that got people thrown in jail." This particular deal highlighted one of the most enduring themes of Pawn Stars: the idea that legality doesn't always dictate value. Many of the items that passed through the shop were once controversial, misunderstood, or outright banned. Yet, over time, they transform into coveted collectibles. Rick knows this well. He's built his career on identifying overlooked treasures, whether they're antique coins, celebrity memorabilia, or rare firearms. His ability to see beyond the surface and understand the cultural weight of an object is part of what makes him so successful. The absinthe bottle wasn't just a financial win, it was a reminder of how history shapes perception. What was once feared and forbidden had become celebrated and desired. Absinthe isn't the only once illegal item to find new life in the collectibles market. Other notable examples include: each of these categories walks a fine line between legality, ethics, and historical interest. Rick and the team at the gold and silver pawn shop handle such items with care, ensuring they don't cross any lines while still respecting their place in history. One of the reasons Rick has succeeded in the pawn business for so long is his balanced approach to risk. He's not afraid to take chances on unique items, but he also knows when to walk away. With the absinthe bottle, he did his homework. He verified authenticity, checked recent sales, and priced it appropriately. There was no guarantee it would sell for top dollar, but the odds were in his favor. That's the essence of Rick's strategy: informed speculation. He doesn't gamble blindly, he researches, calculates, and acts decisively. And when he gets it right, the results speak for themselves. Rick Harrison's purchase and resale of a pre-ban absinthe bottle may seem like just another day at the pawn shop, but it tells a larger story about the evolution of culture, law, and collecting. What was once considered a threat to society became a symbol of artistic freedom. What was once illegal became legendary. And in the world of Pawn Stars, where every item has a past and every deal has a lesson, Rick continues to prove that history isn't just something to remember, it's something to invest in. Whether it's a rare coin, a historic document, or a bottle of outlawed liquor, Rick knows that the true value of an item often lies not in what it is, but in what it represents. And sometimes that's worth far more than its weight in gold.